The story of Joseph is the final major story in the book of Genesis. It takes up Genesis chapters 37-50 and tells the story of jealousy, betrayal, suffering, power, forgiveness, and how Joseph's family ends up in Egypt. Joseph's family. Joseph was the son of Jacob, also called Israel, and Rachel. Jacob had 12 sons, who later became the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph was one of Jacob's youngest sons and was especially loved by his father. Genesis says Jacob gave Joseph a special garment, often called a coat of many colors. Genesis 37 verse 3. Because Joseph was favored, his brothers became jealous of him. Joseph's dreams. Joseph had dreams that seemed to show his family would one day bow down to him. In one dream, Joseph saw his brothers' bundles of grain bowing down to his bundle. In another dream, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. When Joseph told his brothers, they became even more angry because they interpreted the dreams as Joseph saying he would rule over them. Joseph is sold by his brothers. One day, Joseph's brothers were watching the family's flocks. They saw Joseph coming and decided to get rid of him. At first, they planned to kill him, but his brother Reuben convinced them not to murder him. Instead, they threw Joseph into a pit. Later, they sold him to traveling merchants who were going to Egypt. To hide what they had done, they took Joseph's special garment, covered it with animal blood, and showed it to Jacob. Jacob believed Joseph had been killed and mourned deeply. Joseph in Egypt. In Egypt, Joseph was sold as a slave to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. Genesis says Joseph was successful because God was with him, and Potiphar eventually put him in charge of his household. However, Potiphar's wife accused Joseph falsely after he refused her advances. Joseph was sent to prison. Joseph in prison, Genesis 39-40. Even in prison, Joseph gained favor. The prison keeper saw that Joseph was responsible and trustworthy, so he put Joseph in charge of the other prisoners. While there, Joseph met two servants of Pharaoh, the chief cupbearer, the person responsible for Pharaoh's drinks, the chief baker. Both men had troubling dreams. Joseph told them that interpretations belonged to God, and he explained their dreams. The cupbearer's dream meant he would be restored to Pharaoh's service. The baker's dream meant he would be executed. Both predictions came true. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him and tell Pharaoh about him, but the cupbearer forgot Joseph. Pharaoh's dreams, Genesis 41. 2 years later, Pharaoh had dreams that troubled him. He dreamed, 1, 7 healthy cows came out of the Nile, followed by 7 thin, sickly cows that ate the healthy ones. 2, 7 healthy ears of grain grew, followed by 7 thin, withered ears that swallowed the healthy ones. Pharaoh asked his wise men and magicians to explain the dreams, but no one could. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph. He told Pharaoh about the Hebrew prisoner who could interpret dreams. Joseph, before Pharaoh. Joseph was brought out of prison and cleaned up before meeting Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked if Joseph could interpret dreams. Joseph replied that the ability came from God. Joseph explained the 7 healthy cows and 7 healthy grain stalks represented 7 years of great abundance. The 7 weak cows and 7 withered stalks represented 7 years of severe famine that would follow. Joseph did not stop at explaining the dream. He advised Pharaoh to appoint a wise leader, collect and store food during the 7 good years, prepare Egypt for the coming famine. Joseph becomes second in command. Genesis 41. Pharaoh was impressed by Joseph's wisdom. He said, open quote, since God has revealed this to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. Close quote. Pharaoh made Joseph the second most powerful person in Egypt. Joseph was given Pharaoh's signet ring, a symbol of authority, fine clothing, a gold chain, a royal chariot. People were commanded to bow before Joseph. Joseph was now no longer a slave or prisoner. He was the governor of Egypt. Joseph's new life. Joseph was about 30 years old when he entered Pharaoh's service. He married Asenath, the daughter of an Egyptian priest. They had 2 sons, one Manasseh. Joseph said God helped him forget his hardships. 2 Ephraim. Joseph said God made him fruitful in the land of his suffering. The famine begins. The 7 years of abundance came, and Joseph collected huge amounts of grain. Then the 7 years of famine began. The famine affected not only Egypt but surrounding lands. People came to Egypt because Joseph had prepared supplies. Eventually, this famine would bring Joseph's own brothers to Egypt looking for food, and they would come face to face with the brother they thought was gone forever. Genesis 42 to 45, Joseph and his brothers reunite. After Joseph became the powerful governor of Egypt, the famine spread throughout the region. Joseph's family in Canaan was suffering because they had no food. This is where the story turns from Joseph's rise to power to the reunion with the brothers who betrayed him. Genesis 42, Joseph's brothers. Go to Egypt. Jacob, Joseph's father, heard that Egypt had grain because of Joseph's preparation during the years of plenty. Jacob said to his sons, open quote, why do you just keep looking at each other? Genesis 42:1, close quote. He sent 10 of Joseph's brothers to Egypt to buy food. However, Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's younger full brother, because he feared something bad might happen to him. When the brothers arrived in Egypt, they bowed before Joseph. They did not recognize him. This was a major moment because years earlier, Joseph had dreamed that his brothers would bow before him. Now that dream was happening. Joseph tests his brothers. Joseph recognized his brothers, but he did not reveal who he was. He spoke harshly to them and accused them of being spies. The brothers defended themselves and explained. They were 12 brothers. One brother was gone. The youngest was with their father. Joseph demanded that they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, to prove they were telling the truth. Joseph kept Simeon in Egypt as a hostage while the others returned home. Before they left, Joseph secretly returned their money into their grain sacks. Genesis 43, Benjamin goes to Egypt. When the family's food ran out, Jacob told his sons to return to Egypt. The brothers said they could not return unless Benjamin came with them. Jacob was afraid because Benjamin was the only remaining son of Rachel, the woman Jacob loved. Finally, Judah promised to protect Benjamin. Judah said he would personally take responsibility for Benjamin's safety. Jacob agreed and allowed Benjamin to go. Joseph sees Benjamin. When Joseph saw Benjamin, he was deeply moved. Benjamin was his full brother, the son of Rachel. Joseph had to leave the room because he was overcome with emotion and wanted to cry privately. Later, Joseph prepared a feast for his brothers. The brothers were surprised because they were seated according to their birth order, something they thought was impossible. Benjamin received a larger portion of food than the others. Genesis 44. Joseph tests Benjamin and Judah. Joseph wanted to know if his brothers had truly changed. He ordered his servant to place a silver cup in Benjamin's sack before they left. After they departed, Joseph sent his servant after them and accused Benjamin of stealing the cup. The brothers denied stealing it, but the cup was found in Benjamin's bag. Joseph said Benjamin must remain in Egypt as a servant. Judah offers himself. This is one of the most important moments in the Joseph story. Judah stepped forward and begged Joseph to take him instead of Benjamin. He explained that their father Jacob loved Benjamin deeply and would be devastated if Benjamin did not return. Judah said he could not bear to see his father suffer. This was a major change from years earlier when Judah had helped sell Joseph into slavery. Now, Judah was willing to sacrifice himself for his brother. Genesis 45. Joseph reveals himself. Joseph could no longer control his emotions. He sent everyone except his brothers out of the room and began to cry. Then he said, open quote, I am Joseph? Is my father still living? Close quote. His brothers were terrified. They could not believe that the powerful Egyptian ruler standing before them was the brother they had sold into slavery. Joseph forgives his brothers. Instead of seeking revenge, Joseph comforted them. He told them not to be angry with themselves because their actions had led to a larger outcome. Joseph explained that he had been sent ahead to Egypt to preserve life during the famine. He told them to bring their father Jacob and their families to Egypt so they could survive. Pharaoh welcomes Joseph's family. Pharaoh heard about Joseph's brothers and told Joseph to bring his family to Egypt. He offered them the best land in Egypt, the land of Goshen. Joseph gave his brothers supplies and gifts for the journey. The brothers returned to Canaan to tell Jacob, Joseph is still alive. At first, Jacob could not believe it. But when he saw the evidence and heard Joseph was alive, he was filled with joy. 1. Forgiveness. Joseph had the power to punish his brothers but chose forgiveness. 2. Change. Judah, who once betrayed Joseph, later offers himself to save Benjamin. 3. Hidden identity. Joseph's brothers do not recognize him, creating the tension of the story. 4. Suffering and purpose. Joseph interprets his years of hardship as part of a larger plan to save lives. Genesis 46 to 50. Jacob moves to Egypt, Joseph's family is restored, and Genesis ends. These final chapters of Genesis bring the story of Joseph and his family to a close. The themes are reunion, faith, forgiveness, family, and the continuation of a promise. Genesis 46. Jacob goes to Egypt. After hearing that Joseph was alive, Jacob, also called Israel, prepared to go to Egypt. This was a major decision because God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that their descendants would have the land of Canaan. Jacob may have wondered whether leaving the land was the right thing to do. On the journey, Jacob stopped at Beersheba and offered sacrifices to God. God spoke to Jacob in a vision and said, open quote, "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there." Genesis 46:3, close quote. God assured Jacob that his family would not disappear in Egypt. Jacob reunites with Joseph. Jacob and his entire family traveled to Egypt. When Joseph heard his father was coming, he went out to meet him. After many years of believing Joseph was dead, Jacob finally saw his son again. Genesis describes Joseph embracing his father and weeping. Jacob said, open quote, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive." Genesis 46:30, close quote. It was one of the most emotional moments in Genesis. Genesis 47. Jacob's family settles in Egypt. Joseph brought his family before Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked Jacob's sons about their occupation, and they explained that they were shepherds. Pharaoh allowed them to settle in the land of Goshen, one of the best areas of Egypt. Joseph manages the famine. During the famine, Joseph continued managing Egypt's resources. People came to Joseph for food, and eventually they exchanged money, livestock, land, and labor for grain. Egypt became more centralized under Pharaoh's authority. Meanwhile, Joseph's family grew and survived in Egypt. Genesis 48. Jacob blesses Joseph's sons. Before Jacob died, Joseph brought his two sons, Manasseh, Ephraim, to receive a blessing. Joseph expected Jacob to place his right hand on Manasseh, the older son, but Jacob crossed his hands and placed the greater blessing on Ephraim, the younger son. Joseph tried to correct him, but Jacob refused. This continues a pattern seen throughout Genesis. Abel over Cain, Isaac over Ishmael, Jacob over Esau, Ephraim over Manasseh. The younger son repeatedly receives an unexpected blessing. Genesis 49. Jacob blesses his sons. Jacob gathered his 12 sons before his death. He spoke blessings and predictions about their futures. These sons became the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel. Some important blessings include: Judah Jacob spoke about Judah's leadership among the brothers. Later biblical traditions connect Judah's line with Israel's kings, including David, and in Christianity with Jesus. Joseph received a special blessing because of his faithfulness and success. Genesis 50, the death of Jacob and Joseph. Jacob died in Egypt. Joseph mourned his father and arranged for Jacob to be buried in the land of Canaan, in the family burial place at Machpelah. This was important because the family's connection to the promised land remained. Joseph forgives his brothers again. After Jacob died, Joseph's brothers became afraid. They wondered, will Joseph finally take revenge now that our father is gone? They sent a message asking for forgiveness. Joseph wept when he heard this. He told them, open quote, "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God?" Genesis 50:19, close quote. Then Joseph said, open quote, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20, close quote. Joseph reassured them and promised to care for them. Joseph's death. Joseph lived to be 110 years old. Before he died, he told his family that God would one day bring them out of Egypt and return them to the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He asked that his bones be carried with them when that happened. Genesis ends with Joseph's death in Egypt. The meaning of Genesis ending. Genesis begins with the creation of the world, humanity's first failures, broken relationships. It ends with a family reunited, forgiveness replacing revenge, a promise continuing. The final message of Genesis is that a person's story is not always defined by their suffering. Joseph went from favored son, betrayed brother, Slave, prisoner, powerful leader. His life shows that hardship can become part of a larger story. Inspirational closing message. The story of Joseph reminds us that where you start does not determine where you finish. A person can be rejected, betrayed, or knocked down, but that does not mean their story is over. Joseph lost his freedom, his family, and his position, but he never lost his ability to rise above his circumstances. Genesis teaches that forgiveness can heal what hatred destroys, and that even painful chapters can lead to transformation. The same person who was thrown into a pit became the person who saved the people who put him there. Your beginning is not your ending. Your struggles are chapters, not the entire book. Thanks for watching. If you found this discussion informative, don't let it end here. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest videos on world politics, history, and current events. Your support helps us continue bringing thoughtful analysis and important conversations from around the globe. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and remember, understanding the world is the first step toward changing it, where global issues meet informed perspectives. See you in the next video.